Greetings, fresh off the boat from Bordeaux, tasting the 2023 barrel samples. And I don't know if you've heard a lot about the vintage. I know there was a lot of talk of, disease pressure and maybe not so great a vintage, or the fact that they have a lot of wine, they produce a lot of wine, their cellars are full. But whatever you've heard, I'm here to tell you what I tasted. And I have to say that I really like the vintage. And I'm a salesman and I own a wine shop for sure, but I have a lot of 20s, I've got 19s, I got wine to sell. So it's not like I need to, put a Band-Aid over, already what we already have. But I have to say something about the vintage that what I really enjoy about the 23s is the fact that the wines have a purity of fruit that I can't remember ever tasting out of an En Primeur campaign, a barrel sample campaign. The wines are I don't want to use fresh because we used that last year. They're complex. They have an elegance to them and that would be probably the word I would use for the 23s, is that they're extremely elegant. But the one thing that they also have, in addition to elegance, is they have a really broad mid-palate. And the mid-palate is what I really look for in wine, no matter where it comes from, but specifically Bordeaux, because Bordeaux has a tendency to kind of sometimes be one-dimensional. And I don't mean that in a way to whereas, oh yeah, Bordeaux wines are boring, no. But what I mean is, like, a lot of times when you're tasting barrel samples, you just get this ponderance of tannin and fruit, and you're really trying to find whether or not they kind of like coexist together to where there's harmony. And what I have found with the 23s is that you have that harmony, but you also have the complexity and the elegance of where you really get a sense of place of a lot of the wines. So like when I was in Pessac, I felt I was in Pessac. When I was in Margaux, I felt I was in Margaux. When I was in Saint Julien, same thing, Saint Julien, Pauillac, Saint Estèphe, Pomerol, Saint Emilion. And that's exactly what I want from Bordeaux. I want to know when I'm in a place that I'm tasting the wines from that place. And I have in front of me the 2020 Duhart Millon, and this is the one actually we're going to offer this week on Friday. And the reason I have this with me is because this was the first Duhart that I felt that it claims the respect that it deserves of being a Lafite property. Not that it never did before, but I think now Duhart has found its elegance. That word, elegance. And I was blown away by the 2023 Duhart, just like I am the 2020. Duhart has a brand new cellar. They just completely, and in fact, actually in 23, I saw so many new cellars than I ever have in the 25 years I've been going to Bordeaux. Everybody's got a brand new cellar. They're showing it off. Well, look at our new cellar. Come on, Tris, come on downstairs. Look at ours. Okay, great. New cellars aside, it's a fantastic vintage. But here's the other thing about the vintage that might be interesting, especially those of you who do invest in Bordeaux Futures. And that is, supposedly, the pricing is supposed to be very, very attractive. So tomorrow, whether you see this today, actually, it's going to be the release of some of the top wines. And I think we're going to see Valenjo tomorrow. I think we actually might see Lafite and Duhart tomorrow as well, with Carroades. And all those wines are really outstanding. If you read what the critics have talked about with the vintage, you've seen some pretty high marks. Maybe not as high as 22, definitely not as high as 20 and 19. But, again, Bordeaux is not, they make what nature gives them. It's all dry farmed, and essentially what you get is what you get. So, when people ask me, Tristan, what what vintage would you compare 23 to? And it's such a difficult question because I can't decide, because there's really no vintage that compares with it. Out of all the years that I've been tasting En Primeur, I really can't find a vintage that I can really earmark. I mean, maybe '01, but then again, in '01, they were farming differently, they were making wines different. You know, you're talking about, you know, the Parker era, you know, where you wanted big and over-extracted and, you know, and trying to get the Parker points. So it's not really, you can't really look at older vintages to compare what 23 is all about. 23 is all about elegance, and this is where, you know, a lot of the enologists like Thomas Duclos, Eric Boisonneau, you know, the guys that are a little bit more on the old school side. I mean, you still have Michel Rolland, he's out there and he's doing his thing. Stéphane Neurat has since retired, but he still has his company that's out there, you know, doing enology with people. Claude Gros is another guy. You know, it's everyone, I think I think it maybe happens with age, you know? It's like we age gracefully and we want more elegance, and we're, you know, when we're young, we want this power, we want this big over alcohol, you know, big, you know, over extracted wines. And I think as we get older, we want that elegance. And I think that's what Bordeaux did in 23. They created, or they made, in most of the chateaus, I don't want to say everyone's perfect. You'll get our reports, you know, every time we send something out. But I think the majority of the Bordelais made an incredibly wonderful wine in 23. I was really excited about it. I kind of went there almost pessimistic, you know, because of all the things I heard. And after tasting the wines, I was like, wow, there's some really good wine this vintage. And not just good wine, but great wine. So anyway, we'll be sending out, you know, reports on a daily basis. Unfortunately, I didn't have my partner in crime with me to sit there and kind of do a point counterpoint like we did last year. But we will continue to, or I will continue to tell you what I think about the specific wines of the vintage as we go through. I have pages and pages of notes that I took when I was there. It was a great time. It was great to see everybody. And, you know, just stay tuned. I think it's a good vintage, and depending on the price, if they come out and they do the right thing, and this is the most important thing, Bordeaux people, if you're listening, do the right thing. Futures are meant to be bought as an investment, not as something that you're gonna pay the same price 2 years later when the wines are actually here, because that defeats the whole purpose of futures, okay? So do the right thing. We will go ahead and continue to support, especially if you do the right thing. And if it all works out and the stars align, think of it as like 2008. Remember 2008? All those you old timers? That was one of the greatest vintages to invest in. And then 19 as well. So hopefully we'll be back to those two vintages, and you know, you may see some incredible deals. Stay tuned.